I'm Erin O'Byrne and welcome to Everything EFL podcast. I'm passionate about serving teachers and I offer training for schools and institutions whose language teachers need a little refresher, a change of mindset and some super practical ideas to put into their classrooms straight away. There is no one-size-fits-all lesson plan, but you've got a friend and support system in me. I can help reduce your overwhelm, give you some teacher inspiration, and improve your work-life balance. How? With some solid advice, takeaways you can try out immediately, and some much-needed teacher love, because your well-being is important too. Are you ready to make small changes one step at a time and remember how amazing you are? Let's go! Hello, you gorgeous teacher. If you're one of my lovely regular listeners, welcome back. If you're brand new to Everything EFL podcast, you are most welcome, and I hope you stick around. Bit of housekeeping to begin with, so please bear with me. I got a lovely recommendation on LinkedIn from Bethany Anderson, who included me in a list of podcasts for teaching inspiration, and I'm in great company. On that list is TESOL Pop, the podcast of my good friend Laura Wilkes. You should check it out because she's amazing. And also, if you want to, or if you're thinking about making short form videos for social media for whatever reason, she's got a course running at the moment. I'm currently doing it and it's absolutely fantastic. It's called Video Venturers and I'm pretty sure she's going to run it again. So check her out. She is on Communicating for Impact if you want to look her up online. Bethany said that she loves my conversational style and it's very unserious and that's refreshing, which do you know what? I really appreciate that because I think teachers, we don't need fancy words, we don't need fancy terminology, big long conversations. No shade to the podcasts that do that. It's just not my style because personally I've got a lot on my plate. I know you've got a lot on your plate and you just need something a little bit more bite-sized, I think. And I think that it just connects to people better if you're talking to them like they're, just sitting in the staff room or maybe we're having a coffee or a pint after work because I just want everything to be completely relatable and I want it to resonate immediately. So Bethany, thank you. I really appreciate your comments because it's just, you hit the nail on the head. It's exactly what I want people to get from my podcast. And I love hearing from you guys, and that's something that I've missed in the last month because I haven't released anything. I haven't done any newsletters. I've done nothing. I'm extremely tired. I'll get to that in a little bit. But back to my point, I appreciate hearing from you because, it's nice to know that I'm doing a good job. Or not such a good job. I don't mind criticism as long as it's polite and constructive. Everything gives me a chance to improve on what I'm doing. Now, second thing, my last episode, which was about the passive, it actually got quite a few more listens than usual, which tells me something interesting. It tells me that possibly grammar is something that you guys want to hear more about. So I'm going to ask you if you have anything specific you would like me to talk about or, anything at all that you'd like me to do an episode on. Let me know. All my details are in the show notes. Do not hesitate to contact me. Thirdly, and again, just coming back to my previous point, you will have noticed there's been a big gap between this podcast and my last one. And the reason is that I'm tired, I'm burnt out. I finished delivering my methods and mindset course almost 2 weeks ago. And while I was delivering it, and I was doing the marketing for it and also creating the content for it and all of that, it's just taken everything out of me. And I'm not complaining. I'm very lucky. I had a great time delivering the course. I really did. I loved engaging with the teachers on the course. I think it was very good. I think it was solid. I've got good feedback. And I think I've created something very unique and very special. And I'd like to run it again next year and maybe thinking of splitting it into two. So you've got the options of doing methods, which is kind of all about the lexical approach. And then the other course would be mindset, which is about validating who you are as a teacher, mindfulness in class, building confidence and community in class. So 2 very different courses, but together very holistic. But I think that 3 weeks commitment is, a little bit more reasonable and easier for teachers than a 6 weeks course. So, if I run it 2 or 3 times a year, you could maybe do one course first, give a bit of time, to implement the ideas. And then if you think, I'll do the other one, you can do the other one. Oh, digressing again. See, my head is all over the place. Fourth, if you're on my newsletter list, there's been nothing for a while, and all I can say is I'm just So my head, do you know what it is? It's overwhelm. I use this word a lot, and I think for me it's overwhelm. Like, just the thought of sitting down and creating a post is just like, I don't want to do it. I just got no urge to do it, which is weird because I love creating and I love doing posts and things, but I just need to step away for a couple of weeks, and I think it's done me really good. But I'm gonna, as soon as I finish recording this podcast, I'm gonna write a newsletter as well, try and get back into it. So I'm sitting here recording this episode for you, and I promise I will get to the meat and potatoes of this episode very soon. But I just felt that I needed to explain sort of where I am at the moment, and I challenge you or encourage you to do the same. I mean, like, if you're a mainstream teacher 3/4 of the way through the term, stop, think, how do you feel? How's your headspace? How's your energy? How are you going to spend your Christmas break? I hope that you don't do too much work. I hope you relax and enjoy it so that you're refreshed for the new year. If you're a year-round private language school teacher, I know that you'll probably be absolutely exhausted by this point because our busiest period is the summer. We don't really have a break unless we choose to. And by the way, and I probably don't even need to say this, but going home to family doesn't count as a holiday. We all know family ain't no holiday. You know that, and I know that. So anyway, having said all of that, I will be taking my usual break between mid-December and the end of January. So between now and then, I'll release a few episodes that are probably quite short because, again, quite frankly, that's all I can manage. And I hope you'll understand that, I'm going to be back with a vengeance in the new year. And today, anyway, at least, possibly for the rest of the year, haven't decided yet, I'm going to go back to my mantras series. I actually only got around to doing 2 of them. Episode 117 was mantra number 1, you won't reach every student. And then I did one a little, but maybe the week after, 119, 2 weeks after, which was about stepping out of your comfort zone. I don't know what a comfort is. Anyway, so, okay, you ready? Strap in. I don't know if it's going to be a bumpy ride or not, but here we go. Okay, so I thought last week, again, very much burnt out and sort of exhausted. I wanted to just find something that was quite easy for a Monday morning that I didn't really have to think too much about. And you know me, I very much limit my prep time. I do about an hour in the morning before class for both of my classes, and that's it. So I thought, okay, do you know what I'll do? And this is no shade again, but there's a lot of teachers at my school that use Lingo House and ESL Brains, which kind of give you like this ready-made lesson plan. A lot of these teachers do double shifts. They're very busy, so they can be quite handy if you exploit them in the right way. There's lots of different activities and skills. Just not my bag, okay? Have you ever tried to use somebody else's lesson plan? It's just, I can't do it. But I just thought, I'll have a look, right? I'll have a look. And then it just reminded me why I don't use them. You might as well be reading Swahili when they give you directions in a lesson plan that you haven't actually designed. I can't work with them, so I gave up. And again, not criticising the teachers who use them. I just think as long as you don't use them very much, because if everything is, predetermined, where's the space for emergent language? You kind of have to hope that the language examples that have been used in the texts or audios are natural and full of good lexical chunks, good natural phrases that we would use in real life. Now, this physical, literal example of a ready-made one-size-fits-all lesson plan, it serves as a useful metaphor and segue to my actual point of this episode. Yes, I will get there at some point. Regardless of whether it's your lesson plan, somebody else's, whether you've spent 5 minutes planning or 2 hours planning, there are a few things to remember because there is no one size fits all. You have to just do your best to try and keep everyone happy at certain times in the lesson. You might even find this if you are following the course, but I'm thinking specifically on the topics of the environment and art, which can be made interesting and fun, but a lot of the times everybody groans when they come up. Anyway, digressing again, let's get to the point. The best you can do is to create a variety of engaging activities or tasks, and hopefully everyone will be covered at some point, or hopefully for most or all of the lessons. So I think I'm going to give you a few tips here just to sort of make your lessons run a bit more smoothly. So firstly, try to make each task you do in the lesson fairly short and achievable, just to keep that lesson moving, keep that pace moving. And secondly, try to ensure there are some peaks and valleys, okay? Which basically means, switch up the energy, switch up the pace a little bit. You can slow down, but then what are you going to do after that so the energy levels go up again? And it could be something as simple as just don't have your students sat at the desk for the whole time. Even if there's no cause for them to really move around, why don't you just swap them around in the middle of like between tasks or in the middle of the lesson? Okay, get up, sit next to someone else, something like that, just so there's a bit of movement, a bit of dynamics going on with the switching of partners. Thirdly, if you do a reading, could you maybe put the reading on the wall so that students actually move around again? Again, just to change up the energy of the lesson. Number 4, if there's a space to include some emergent language work, use it. And if you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure how I can do that, a lead-in could be a short discussion or brainstorm. That's an emergent language. That's potentially a good space to note down some emergent language. Now, if you're not sure what this is included in my Methods and Mindset course. If I do split the course up, it will be in the methods part. Just saying. Number 5, what about those fast finishers? Now, I do have an episode on that. It's all the way back at number 74. But make sure, again, for pace and for keeping people engaged, what are you going to give those people who are finished, okay? There's loads of different things you can do that don't involve them just doing an extra exercise or you preparing an extra exercise. There's things you can do off the cuff or that just don't require any prep. Number 6, is there space in the lesson for your students to breathe and just use the language a little bit? And what I mean by this is, I don't mean those prescribed utterances of the target language. We're going to do so-and-so today. I want you to produce an example of so-and-so. I'm talking about the more spontaneous, unplanned language. You could call it emergent language. It could be a discussion. It could be anything. And you don't have to note anything down. You don't have to necessarily monitor. It's just the kind of unplanned language where you don't know what they're going to say, what the result's going to be. But how about that? What did you do at the weekend? Or what are you doing tomorrow? Or a reflection question. How are you feeling? Did you enjoy today's lesson? And it's not about you monitoring. It's just about them actually, do you know what? Let's just speak a bit of English and not worry about they would perceive to be judged. You would say monitored. You don't have to be on your students' arse every second that something comes out of their mouth. Let them relax and enjoy using the language. Number 7, and I've talked about this before, if there is an inevitable vocabulary list on the lesson plan, pre-teaching, or maybe in your course book, you've done a text and then it has like a list of 8 different sort of usually words, unfortunately. Find these in the text, use the context, what do they mean? Anything like that. Could you expand them into phrases? And if you're pre-teaching, can you lift the entire phrase or sentence out of the text? So let's say, for example, you're doing an audio and somebody says, yeah, I got into skiing when I went to Austria 3 years ago, right? What you might do is write on the board, get into, and then, become interested in something. Fine. But why don't you just take the whole sentence out of the text? I got into skiing when I went to Austria 3 years ago. What's wrong with that? You're going to help your students understand what they're hearing. Brilliant. According to some sources, students should understand about 98% of whatever they're listening to. Okay? And if you think about it like that, that means a lot of preparation and planning and pre-tasks. Maybe that'll be a good episode. Put a pin in that one. Somebody send me a DM and remind me, please. At the very least, and I've said this before, you should be writing down collocations for your students to record, not individual words. Individual words mean nothing. Okay, and I think my final point is going to be, don't be afraid to ask your students about the lesson content, the tasks that you did. Reflection. It's a very important part of the learning process. Less planning for you. All you need to do is plan maybe 1 or 2 questions. And even if you don't have time in the lesson, what you could do is put a question on the board, give each student a post-it note. This isn't my idea, by the way, but I think it's a brilliant idea. Give them all a post-it note, and then they can write their reflections or feedback or whatever, and then they could either stick it on the door frame as they go out or stick it on your desk. So there you go. So look, nothing groundbreaking or mind-blowing here. It's just a reminder just to, keep things moving, switch things up a little bit, and just support and scaffold things for your students. It doesn't matter whether, like I said, it's a lesson that you're doing off the cuff, whether it's out the course book, whether it's a ready-made lesson plan, whether it's something you've done before. Just consider the things that I've talked about. Ask yourself some questions. Are my students moving? Are they swapping around? Is the pace the same throughout, or am I switching it up? Are there peaks and valleys? Is there a chance for students to actually use the language in a relaxed, informal way without me monitoring them? And all the other things I just said as well. Now, in terms of methodology, again, there's no one size fits all. I love the lexical approach, but not everything I do is lexical. I'm always reading. Haven't read for a little while, I'm going to be honest. I've been too busy, but I do try and read as much as I can about how the brain works and things like that. That's very important to me. Take inspiration from other people, what they're doing. The beautiful thing about this job is that we never stop learning. There's so much out there. There's so many theories, so many methods, and I think most of us have a good idea of what doesn't work, but we do tend to sort of keep doing it again and again and again because that's our comfort zone, right? And maybe it's overwhelming just to try new things. And again, it's always due to sort of time, lack of headspace. And in some cases, unfortunately, some teachers have just sort of given up. I hate to say it. But my advice is always the same. Step outside your comfort zone, but just in very small steps. So just try one little thing, like, the pre-teaching a whole phrase from a text rather than just a word. Or, just ask yourself, once you've done your lesson plan, how can I just make this bit a bit faster, this bit a bit slower? How can I switch up the energy? Just something like that. Something really, really, really small. And also, let your students in on what you're doing. I always say to my students, I've never done this before, I'm trying something new. And you see them sort of lean forward and suddenly they're engaged, right? And then you tell them why you're doing it. And I'll give you an example. And it is an example I've given before, but if you haven't done this in your class, I urge you to do it because this has never failed as an engaging activity, okay? And if you can't do all of the steps in one because you don't have time, you can break this up over the course of several lessons. So again, that kind of bite-sized approach of we're doing something, we're going to come back to it in the next lesson, and then we're going to come back to it in the next lesson. And then any language that you take from it, you can revisit in other lessons with little mini tasks for vocab revision. So it's my dialogue rotation. I think I might have spoken about it in episode 86, but to be honest, I don't know. It's great for grammar. So I did this with a B2 class, but you can do it with pretty much any level, okay? We did modals of speculation in the past. So on 5 pieces of paper, I wrote one sentence on each one, and it was like part of a dialogue. So it was things like, oh, she must have been so disappointed. She must have known. And things like that. So very vague, right? She, who the hell is she? And words like that and there, and these words in there that make it very sort of, there's no context, but there's these sort of pronouns and substitution words, right? So you put those around the room, and then you get students in pairs or threes, maximum 3s, to walk around the room, and you have some questions on the board. Who's talking and who are they talking to? What's the context or situation, and where are they? Okay, so give them a couple of minutes to walk around and speculate. And also, if you have any pronouns or substitution words like she and that and him, highlight them in yellow and also write on the board, what do these words, who and what do these words refer to? Again, there's no right or wrong answer. Use your imagination. So give your students time to do that. And then you say to them, okay, choose a piece of paper, stand next to it, read it, add a line of dialogue. Do an example on the board. When you're finished, go to the next piece of paper, add a line of dialogue. It could be above, it could be below, it doesn't matter. It just has to make sense and flow, right? It might be worth saying that the pieces of paper are not connected to each other because that has been a source of confusion before. So by this point, students are walking around, they're writing down, and then they're kind of looking at all the pieces of paper and all the other groups have written on them as well, right? So let's say they circle around, they write on 5 pieces of paper, they come back to their original dialogue. There should be a few lines there now because every other group has visited it. Write another line, And then by this point, the sharper ones are sort of looking at me going, I'm not sure this makes sense. And I'm like, that's okay. Brilliant. They're noticing things that aren't quite correct. And then once, give them 10 minutes or whatever, once they stop, you go around quickly and start underlining things that are not quite correct. And you can do this any way you like. I did a little correction code on the board. So a line just means something needs changing. A little sort of pointy hat means word missing. A question mark, not really sure what you're trying to say. So give them time to walk around, have a look, make their own corrections, and then we have a look together. And then as a follow-up, you can take, this is emergent language in a way as well, because the students have generated it. It's unplanned. You've got no idea what they're going to produce. And another little thing that's really nice about this activity is that their sense of humor often comes through. Their personalities come through in it. It's very interesting. A lot of the dialogues are very humorous. So anyway, back to my original point about letting students in on it. One of my students actually said, oh my God, this is such a good activity because it allows us to see the mistakes that we make and we can correct them. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to expand on that. So I said to them, yeah, and you know what else? You are generating the language yourself, which is much more meaningful than me giving you the language to learn. And also, because you're writing dialogues, all of the language is very conversational. So you get the opportunity to correct or change certain things, like going to becomes gonna, and want to becomes wanna, and all those little responses that we use, and direct translations often come out in these little dialogues, so you can have a look at that as well. And it's just such a beneficial activity, and it's super engaging. Okay, that took a bit longer than I wanted, but and I hope this isn't too garbled and it all makes sense. It's still in the morning, I'm still in my onesie, and I'm on my second cup of tea, and now I'm going to go and do the hoovering. So anyway, if you need anything, I'm at the end of a DM or email. My details are in the show notes. Keep your eyes out in the new year for my Methods and Mindset course, whether it's going to be the same or repackaged, I'm not sure. I'm also looking at expanding my business into visiting schools and doing day workshops followed by online workshops to sort of follow up and continue that professional development. And this was not actually my idea. It was something that came out of a very interesting conversation I had with a lovely guy. Hi, you know who you are. About possibly going over next year to Germany and doing just that. And I thought, what a brilliant business model. What a great idea. So if you think your school can benefit from me coming over, if what I say resonates with you and makes sense, if you listen to my podcast, and you think that I can benefit you and the other teachers in your school, let's have a chat. You can go onto my website, refreshyourteaching.com, or you can DM me, or all my details are in the show notes. You know that. But this is something that I get such a lot out of, that face-to-face, spending time with teachers. But I just think that follow-up idea of the online sessions is brilliant. It's something we can just keep working together and progressing together, and seeing that progress would just give me so much joy. And I think it would just be brilliant for you as well. So, chat to your director or principal, or, well, whoever's in charge of the funding, really. Thanks, Erasmus. Join my newsletter as well if you haven't already. Weekly, I'm going to say weekly, it depends how tired I am, but you get updates, you get tips, advice, you get teacher love, you get support, and more importantly, you get discounts on my offers. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I've been talking for long enough and I'm desperate for another cup of tea. I'm just going to end by saying this, okay? Obviously, like I always say, have a safe and peaceful week, but if you are feeling a bit burnt out or overwhelmed, is there a day or an evening or even an hour that you can just have to yourself, where you can run a bath, go for a walk, read a book, listen to a podcast, whatever? That's what I want for you this week, and that's your challenge. Create space and time for yourself, and only yourself. And the other thing, obviously, is think about the 8 points that I raised in this episode. Have a look at your next lesson plan and just ask yourself a few questions. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, I promise. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Share the love, guys. Bye.